Greetings all, and welcome to another.
Minute, Dennis. Go ahead.
Okay, greetings all, and welcome to another live presentation. Today we'll be focusing on corn production the CCJ way, and we'll take a look at pest control, nutrition tips, and cost benefit. I am your presenter, Dennis Leckie, Product Development Agronomist for the Northeast region. Let's get into it. Now, corn is a very healthy food. It's actually rich in vitamin C, a very good source of carotenoids. It contains also a small components of vitamin B, E, and K, and as well as minerals like magnesium and potassium. It is also very beneficial in improving the health of your digestive system, and that is largely due to the amount of fiber that is in corn. It's also an important food for beneficial bacteria in your digestive tract. So the bacteria in your digestive tract actually feeds on the corn and helps improve your digestive system. And you know, for persons who are constantly hungry all the time, it can actually help you to feel or stay full longer in between meals. Now, CCJ currently supplies a sweet corn cultivar called Bright Gene #2. And this is a hybrid sweet corn with very tender kernels. It's a very, very sweet corn. It's tolerant to heat, wetness, and damping off. And it has excellent shipping and storage quality. Currently, we have had farmers in Jamaica planting the new Bright Gene sweet corn for well over 3 years now with excellent results. It is fast maturing, so within about 65 to 85 days, the plants would reach maturity. And at maturity, there will be about 160 to 180 centimeters, or just about 5'3" to 5'10" in height. So just around the height of an average man. And you should get at least 1 to 2 grade A cobs. But in some cases with this corn variety, we get corn as many as 5 or 6 corns per plant. But what I would recommend is that if you get that, the first 3 corns would be the ones that you try to save, and you just break the others out and don't allow them to develop and pull food from the 1 or 2 that you really would want to get the maximum weight from, which would be about 250 grams or 0.6 pounds. And the presentation that we currently have available is a 1 kilogram presentation. Now, in carrying out your corn production activities, land clearing would recommend, for example, our Glyphos AG41 along with Prol, and this would be a pre-planting treatment to the soil and to any existing weeds that may have sprouted up after you finish plowing and preparing your lands. Please note, however, that to get the maximum effect from Prol, you would need to do it when the soil is moist or just before a rainfall event, or you would use a sprinkler system to help allow the Prol to penetrate into the soil and kill your weed seeds and those pests that would have not germinated or sprouted above the ground as yet. Now, in terms of soil conditions, you need well-drained soils that is not prone to waterlogging, high organic matter content, and we recommend that when you're plowing, at least 8 to 12 inches deep. And this is so you can plant your seeds or seedlings and have good root development. You have soft soil for the roots to really spread out, because corn is a heavy feeder on nutrients. So you really need to give it that space and give it the nutrients necessary to maximize the potential production. Now, sunlight hours, it prefers full sunlight. However, at least 6 to 8 hours of full sunlight is ideal. And in terms of your row spacing, about 3 feet or 91 centimeters between rows, and 15 to 30 centimeters or about 6 to 12 inches between plants or sown seeds. At this point, I would say to you also, note that in some cases when you're doing direct seeding, especially with market corn, you might put 2 or 3 seeds per hole. And with your sweet corn, we always recommend germinate the seeds before and plant one plant or one seedling per hole. Now, in doing your direct seeding or transplanting, in direct seeding, like I mentioned before, it's most likely 2 to 3 seeds per hole. But before you sow the seeds, in order to increase your potential production and germination, you can treat the holes using diazinon, Caratrax, or dust with Carbaryl. This is specifically to help prevent ants, the field mice or rats, or even chickens and other animals from actually eating or taking away your seeds. A lot of times farmers plant and you have a hole with 3 seeds or 2 seeds and you don't see any germination. When you check there's no seeds in the hole. A lot of times the ants, the mice, etc., they would take them away. Also, you may soak the seeds in agassiz at 15 mils per 3.8 liters of water for about 10 minutes before planting them out. And this will actually help to increase your germination percentage. If you're going to be transplanting seeds now, this is done mainly with your sweet corn because, with the price of sweet corn, a 1 kg pack is running you over $14,000. You don't want to lose not one seed. So I recommend you can use 200 cell trays, 128 cell trays, 1 seed per cell, and then you plant 1 seedling per hole. And with this, you really don't want to make any mistakes. You don't want to lose any of your seeds and seedlings. So you have to be very, very careful. And even after transplanting now, you know that you'd come in and use like your diazinon or Caratrax as a treatment to ensure that you don't have any pests destroying or cutting down your seedlings. Now, as part of our crop treatment and our crop care guides, which are available upon request, you can get them in your farm stores, you can get them from your agronomist from Carbaryl Chemicals Jamaica directly. We have certain and this is something that each year you can ask about it because we are continuously upgrading and updating our crop care guide as new products come along and as we test continuously to see what combinations of products at different times produce the best results. So each year, try and ensure that you have the most up-to-date crop care guides from Carbaryl Chemicals Jamaica. Now, in terms of fertilizer application, as I mentioned before, corn is a very heavy feeder. So application can be done either before or after planting. Before planting, this would actually plow the fertilizer into the ground and then plant. And in this case, now we have Elixir 12-12-17 applied before planting, or you could use our Elixir 16-27-7 plus Amosulfan at a 2-to-1 ratio, or Abodom 12-12-14 plus Amsul at a 2-to-1 ratio, which would be about 300 pounds per acre or 342 kilograms per hectare at about week 2 to 3 after germination. And note always, once you apply the fertilizer, say as a side dress, you need to ensure that you mold the fertilizer because plant roots grow underground and you need to feed the food or the fertilizer, in this case, where the plant roots are. A regular spray program is recommended. And in this case, I would say with corn, you try not to skip a week. You really need to be on top of your spray program with corn because of the speed at which you can have corn earworm or the corn earworm, the moth itself, laying eggs, hatching larvae, and those larvae starting to eat your corn and causing serious, serious damage. So in each treatment, and this is based on our experience, always try to include an adjuvant or what you would normally call a sticker, a fungicide, an insecticide, a foliar fertilizer, something like our Bio 20 or Fortify, Nutrient Express, those products, and a biostimulant such as our cytokine, our agassiz, etc. These products now, especially the foliar fertilizer and the biostimulants, will help to supplement the nutrients that you put at the plant roots and ensure that you get proper growth, green, healthy plants that are able to give you the good quality cobs. And you should note, because of how heavy the plants feed, a lot of times you will see some cornfields and they have a yellow color to them, or they have white streaks in the leaves, or the leaves are deformed, etc. You don't get cobs fully developed. It's because a lot of times those micronutrients that the foliar fertilizers and the biostimulants may provide, you don't have those coming in sufficient quantities to carry the plant. Now, in terms of weed control, and this is a tricky one, and you have to ensure that your timing is right with this. Convey may be used and as a weed control through your interrows, through the cornfield. Just because it can be used, though, we don't want it to wet the plants. So it's not that you're going to go bathe them with the Convey because it may still have a phytotoxic effect on the corn plant. So you have to be careful nevertheless with your application. But at 3 to 4 weeks after seedling transplant, you can apply Convey, or 5 to 6 weeks after germination. So I'm going to go through this to make sure everybody understands. If it is that you germinated your seedling in a seedling tray, it would be in a tray for about 2 weeks before you transplant it. At week 3 to 4 after transplanting, you can go through it Convey and you're on the least amount of risk of causing any damage to your plants. If it is now that you direct seeded, 5 to 6 weeks after germination is when you would use Convey. Also, it's very important to monitor daily for the presence of pests such as your corn earworm or your fall armyworm, etc. Because these pests, a lot of times, they will not show themselves up during the days. You will be down inside the plant feeding, and sometimes you won't even notice them unless you're looking for them until they have matured and been feeding for about 5 or 6 days and start to create real damage. That is when you start to see them. Now, 1 week after germination, or pretty much at the two leaf stage, our OMEX Bio 20, Fortify, and Calmax-B may be used at 10 mils per 3.8 liters, along with Carbaryl at 20 grams per 3.8 liters. And this early treatment is really to try and stimulate, get that early growth, get the plants being really vigorous early out in the crop life. Because you want the good root growth, you want the good vegetative growth to get that maximum production early on. And the Carbaryl now would provide a good all-around protection from your common pests at that time, your cutters, your ants, etc. Now, week 2 after germination, our Saeta at 15 grams per 3.8 liters, Evergreen at 20 mil per 3.8 liters, and Indicarb at 10 mil per 3.8 liters. And the Indicarb at this point in time, it gives you that excellent larva control for your larvae, your corn earworm or your armyworm, which would be a major pest pretty much from the minute that corn plant comes above ground, those pests will start to attack. Okay, so once you reach to about week 4, a lot of times as well, as in the picture that you can see to the left of the screen, your weeds start to come up, but your plants starting to look really good, really healthy, coming up nice, probably about 2 to 3 feet tall at that time. You come in with your Nutrient Express 4-10-40, your ZMC Express, because at that time you would have the micronutrient deficiencies that would start to show themselves, especially your zinc and your magnesium deficiencies, as well as iron deficiencies. And then you continue with your Indicarb at 10 mils per 3.8 liters. And at this point in time also, you would apply your fertilizer once more and mole, and that would be like your 7-20-30 or your Abodom 15-5-35. And this would be at about 342 kilograms or 300 pounds per acre. An important thing to note though is that by the time you reach week 5 into week 6, you have pretty much determined the kind of production that you'll be getting. So at this point, based on what the plant has taken up, you have already set in motion your level of production that you will be getting. So it's very key it's a key thing to ensure that your management is very good at this point in time. And at week 6, and now you should start to see pre-tasseling, right? You would have applied now your Saeta, Evergreen, Mimic. And Mimic is our another one of our chemistries that would provide very good control of the corn earworm and the larva, as well as your carbendazim, because at times too you can have different rust diseases that would affect your corn. And at this time also, if it is that you're doing sweet corn, you may want to carry out another fertilizer application based on the needs of the plant.
Dennis, we're not hearing you. If you could just shift your location a little.
Next slide, please.
Connection. Sorry about that, guys. We're really having some technical challenges. Just give us a few minutes again. Dennis, you're still there?
Yes, yes, I'm here. My next slide, please. Okay, so at week 7 after germination, and by now, what you should be seeing is your tasseling and your cob start to form. Would recommend that you come in now with like your Fortify, your foliar boron, and the foliar boron here is specifically to ensure that you get good, healthy cob formation, because boron would be helpful in that respect, and to ensure that your corn is filled right out to the end. You know, a lot of times you might see your corn and it's half filled, or even if it has corn that you would call it the corn grains right up to the end, it's not fully filled out and fully developed. So you end up with issues there where the corn is not marketable, you can't get sale for it. Calmax-B once again to give you that good healthy cob, Indicarb and Regnum. And Regnum also contribute to very good cob formation. At about week 8, you'd use now your Nutrient Express as long as ZMC, as well as ZMC Express. And this also is then going to help continue with your development of your cob, because that is your major focus right now. Ensure you have very good cob development. Now, some important notes. Mold and apply your fertilizer ahead of tasseling. A lot of farmers make the mistake and they do not do the correct, and this is coming largely from traditional experience. You know, in the old time days with your traditional market corn, a lot of farmers would have planted and done fertilizer application one time. And even due to labor issues, a lot of farmers wouldn't have the time or spend the time to really mold the fertilizer, cover the fertilizer. A lot of fertilizers on the market are highly volatile, especially the nitrogen in the fertilizer. And what that simply means is just that for that fertilizer with that high nitrogen content, it transforms easily from that solid form into a gas. And if it transforms into that gas, it just goes into the atmosphere and then the plant is unable to take up that nitrogen. So you find that even though you've been putting on nitrogen, you have nitrogen deficiency. Or you find that you might have potassium or phosphorus deficiency. And that is because though you put it on top of the soil, it's not penetrating to where the plant can take it up in the soil. It would be like you feed a child. You share the food, but what you do, you put it on top of the fridge. The child can't reach it on top of the fridge. So yes, you give the child the food, but the child can't eat it because they can't get to it. Think of your plant in the same way. The food is just outside the plant's reach. In terms of your insecticide application, and this is for the worms, they hide and feed during the days down inside the plant or even inside the cob itself. And once they're in those areas feeding, if you just walk in through and just spraying without really targeting where it is that the pests hide, then all of your spraying for the most part will be for naught. Because I have seen in cases where a farmer sprayed and 24 hours after spray application, you see worms or larvae that are 3 days old, 4 days old, almost fully developed in the plant feeding at that time. And they sprayed the day before. So it is something you really have to take the time and target where it is that you're spraying. Cabbage farmers, for example, they would usually take the time and ensure that in the leaves, they make sure the chemical goes down in those areas to catch the diamond back moth or the cabbage looper. It's the same way that you have to go after the corn earworm larvae. corn also, they are very heavy feeders of both water and of nutrients. Now, if especially in sweet corn, you don't have that correct amount of water going under the plant also will not take up the nutrients that may be in the soil. So then you have to run into trouble right then and there. So don't think that because corn is a part of the grass family, and even when sun hot, the grass still grow. No, it may be growing, but it using up all of that energy for growing. So when time comes for production, there's nothing there for you to get that proper level of production. They also use a great deal of micronutrients. And that is why, especially in the leaves and in the cobs, you will see examples of the deficiencies. You know, your streaking, your yellow leaves, your cobs not being fully filled out. You end up with those deficiencies occurring, and then you see the plant suffering as a result. And at the end of it, your bottom line is what takes the biggest hit, because what you should be selling, you will have to be giving away or cutting up into animal feed, etc. And you know, the deficiency symptoms, they show up very easily. But what you don't want to be treating deficiencies, because once you're treating them, you're already behind the game. Now, in terms of yield, and especially for bright gene corn, you can expect 2 to 3 good quality cobs per plant. 2 definitely would be in a grade A kind of condition. The third one, you know, is on the second market, you'd sell that, but still very, very good production. About 22 to 24,000 plants per acre is what you'd plant, and you have a potential yield of about 44 to 72,000 cobs per acre. But what I tell farmers is that aim for an average of 4,000 dozen cobs per acre. And that is pretty easily achievable once you maintain and treat your plot correctly. And you know, with a cob length of an average of 15 to 20 centimeters, you have a nice looking sweet corn right then and there in your hand. Now, in terms of field demonstrations, you know, I was mentioning and stressing earlier, you have some deficiencies that are likely to occur because of nutrient deficiencies. So you get that streaking in your leaves. You know, once you see that happen, you know you're running short on your nutrients, your iron, your zinc, etc. Those show up very early, and you might get even curling of the leaves where they curl and fail to open out properly. You know, you're having some magnesium issues going on as well. Treatment with ZMC Express, and in our field demonstrations, you know, we actually waited till the farmer had this issue, applied the ZMC Express, and went back after 2 applications, and then you see where we corrected those deficiencies. So the plants on your right, the older leaves that would be down the bottom that you can't see so good from the picture, those leaves would have been affected, but the younger leaves that came up 2 weeks after application, all of those leaves came up healthy without the deficiency symptoms. So you pretty much have to be watching and ensure that you catch it early. But I always say it's always better to prevent, better to try than to try and treat and correct the deficiencies, because you start to lose the minute you have a deficiency issue. Also, in Dover, we use our Convey in our field demonstration. So you have your cornfield there, about 4 weeks after transplant of your sweet corn, or if it's your market corn, anyone, go between the rows and apply your Convey. The weeds are there, you spray it. So the first image on the left show the field pre-treatment. The second image is about 5 days after that first treatment. So you actually can start to see the bleaching taking place in the weeds. And then after about a week to 2 weeks, you have a fully brown patch with your corn green and healthy in the middle. Excellent results. Now, in looking at your cost and the benefit that you can derive from putting out the funds to buy your chemicals, to buy your corn seeds, you know, your labor costs, your land prep costs, your land rental costs, everything. In terms of sweet corn, it would appear, and you know, this is the comparison with field and market corn. You know, you realize that in terms of income from both, it may not be much different on a per acre basis. And you know, it's left up now to the price that you get per dozen for the corn. So sweet corn, typically you would get about $1,200 per dozen, but in some cases as high as 1,500 per dozen, and your market corn 800 per dozen, sometimes though as low as 700 per dozen, but it doesn't fluctuate much between those two price points. Now, in terms of sweet corn, your land preparation, labor, your planting material, you know, this usually would run you about $380,000, and largely this difference in cost would be the price of your seeds, because your sweet corn seeds will run you roughly about 2 or about 3 times in some cases the price of your field or your market corn, which would run you about $290,000. Now, your crop care cost, and this now would be the cost that you would incur from your fertilizer applications, your labor to mold, to apply the fertilizer, to spray, etc., would be about 275,000, and this would be the same for both plots. Your yield is expected to be a minimum of 2,000 dozen per acre. And this really comes now from observations we have done with multiple farmers in different locations planting sweet corn, both different varieties of sweet corn and different kind of management activities. But once you get that 2,000 dozen, your gross income should be about 2.4 million. And this is providing you get $1,200 per dozen. And if you subtract from that gross income your total costs, which would have been your 380,000 plus 275,000, you should get about $1.745 million as your net income. For your field or market corn, you should get a higher yield in terms of cob count, about 2,800 dozen per acre, and your gross income would be $2.240 million. If you subtract your expenses from that, you should get about 1.675 million as your net income. And as I said, you notice I would have broken this down even below what the potential is planting your bright gene corn, where you know you should be getting at least 2 cobs per plant. Say if you have 20,000 plants, you should have 40,000 cobs. So it's broken down a bit in order to ensure that even if you fall short, even if you made some mistakes, you still have, or you can still see the potential earnings that you can make using the bright gene corn seeds, the CCJ crop care guide, and the products listed in the CCJ crop care guide as how we recommend for you to use them. Now, on to any questions. All right, no questions? Okay, well, I have a question. I mentioned in passing, and Georgia has, as usual, something to give away to the lucky farmer. I mentioned a presentation or the size package that Bright Gene is sold in, and an estimate of the price. I didn't say the exact price, but I said a roundabout number. So I just need to know the size that the Bright Gene comes in and that price range for the Bright Gene corn seeds. Can anybody give me that one?
Shanice Weber said 14,000.
Correct, Shanice.
And 1
And what is
kg.
excellent?
I'm going to ask Shanice to send her contact to our WhatsApp number, which is 876-401-4766. And there's a question in the chat, Dennis.
Okay,
Dennis?
so yes. So this is a question from Miguel Francis.
Right.
Okay, so the yield is actually not 2,000 pounds, it's 2,000 dozen. But what we have recommended, and this is what it depends on your implements that you're using, because in some cases where you're using a tractor to prepare the land, you may be using a 4-foot bed spacing versus a 3-foot bed spacing, and you may be using a 6-inch or a 12-inch spacing in between plants. A 3-foot in between rows with a 6 to 12-inch spacing between the plants should be able to give you that 2,000, a minimum 2,000 dozen yield coming from your plot. Like locally here in St. Mary, farmers that I advise are doing about 3,000 plus dozen per acre, using that pretty much a 3x6 spacing, so 3 feet between rows and 6 inches or 15 centimeters in the row. And a lot of them, what they will be doing is even doubling it on the beds in some cases based on the land space, their irrigation setup. So it's pretty much a thing where you can tweak to increase your plant population. But I would say once you're doing about 20,000 plants per acre, you are right in the current planting density. And it's something important to note that in a lot of other countries that are a bit more advanced in a lot of their agricultural practices than us here in Jamaica, they go for higher planting densities, but ensure that their nutrition programs are up to ensure that they can increase the yield per acre, because we really need to maximize yield per acre. In pepper, for example, in the past, a max yield per acre for pepper was 4,500 pounds. And until you see it go up to 12,000. Right now, it's 45,000 pounds per acre that you want. I'm sorry, 20,000 pounds was where your max yield was. Now it's 40 and 45,000 pounds per acre, because people are fitting 4,500 and 5,000 plants per acre. Now we're up to where people are putting in 15,000 plants per acre in pepper. Another question, Sir Francis?
Yes, I'm curious, when we increase the density, so we use 3 feet spacing, that is going to be single rows?
Okay, so based on the row spacing, I have had people plant double on the row. So on that bed in particular, you would have 6 inch in the line, so following that drip line, but on the other side of the bed, which will be about 12 inches away, you'd have another row of plants going down. So on
The
each bed, you'd
size
have 2 rows.
and the size was not affected at that high density.
No. However, what we did was up the nutrition provided to the plants and then go through and prune out any cobs that were developing, because what we found as well is that you can have 4 and 5 cobs developing on the plant naturally putting out that, but we got rid of those that would have come up that would not develop into anything but still would have been taking nutrients, and force the plants to send the nutrients to the 2 or the 3 cobs that the farmer wanted to have developing.
Okay, thank you.
Not a problem.
There are no other questions, Dennis.
One more.
Go ahead.
So when you're doing the planting of the sweet corn, are your farmers currently using like your Prowl or Penzine as a pre-emergent herbicide? And if so, what rate and how soon before planting seeds or seedlings are they doing this application?
Okay, both Prowl and Penzine are used, with Prowl finding the more popular option of late. Typically, it's done 7 to 14 days before planting of the seeds, based on if it is the depending on rainfall. Usually they wait 14 days. If they have irrigation, like they're using a sprinkler, the drip system, they do it in 7 days, and they plant the seeds after that 7 day of wetting the bed daily. The seedlings, 7 days typically after applying Prowl, they would also go through and use and plant. The application rates, they vary between 20 and 30 mils per 3.8 liters of water. So pretty much a liter per drum is what they're going at currently with Prowl, and finding no evidence or no significant evidence of phytotoxicity once they follow all the protocols.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay, there being no other questions, I just want to say thanks for joining us. Continue to join us. We have a wealth of videos, a bank of videos available on YouTube that you can rewatch and gather your information, make your notes. Also contact your agronomist, in your area, out of your area. Get the information that you need to ensure that you can maximize on your production. And just note that we are continuously updating our information. So at each session, it's always good to listen in, because a year ago, we did not have, for example, Evergreen and Saeta, but those have been added and updated, and we have incorporated those products into our guides based on results that we have got. So please keep yourself abreast of what is going on, and have a great rest of the day. Cheers.